Okay, so we're on record now. Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Once again, welcome to On Your Sofa discussion. With me today is my very good, bubbly, kind, affectionate, and very knowledgeable, very intelligent co-hostess, Councillor Gloria Opera. She's the director and founder of Cyber Engineers. So welcome, Gloria. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you, Christine. And how are you also? Thank you for that warm introduction and warm welcome. I almost looked around to see who you were talking about, but yeah, I guess it was me, right?
Of course, it's you. Who else? Who is the bubbly, charming, smiley, intelligent kind of scientist? Cyber engineers. You know, each time I think about cyber engineers, wow, I just shake my head and say, she must be very intelligent. What an intelligent lady. And down to earth one also.
Thank you so much.
But you see, we get to why I'm complimenting you. You know, it's very good to compliment people, you know?
Thank you.
We'll get to that bit much later today.
You know, I feel much the same about you. They say, obviously, it takes two to tangle, and birds of a feather, and all those things they talk about, you know, like minds and what have you. I guess that's why we're doing this, right?
Yes, of course.
And having fun doing it as well.
Oh, tell me about it. In fact, we're learning new skills, aren't we? we're just, you know, having fun. It is just like having a laugh, isn't it?
It is.
So welcome to all the participants to today's topic on your sofa discussion. And our topic today is communication, the foundation of a healthy relationship. So Gloria, before I start, do you want to say something before we kick off now?
No, actually, just like we said before, you know, this is one topic that we prepared and we are excited about and really looking forward to sharing, not just on one-on-one, you and myself, but also with our, you know, viewers, just to make sure that it's an aspect of life that if we get it wrong, things go very wrong. And if we get it right, things could go very right with us. So it's important for us to look at this. And obviously you and I, we're not coming from the point of view as, you know, having the final say in this, or the final authority. And so we're sharing it from the position of what life, our collective life experiences have been. And also really to invite others, you know, who have a different view on some aspect of the things, and some, you know, good practice also in their own lives to share with us.
Exactly, I agree with you. We're not we don't have wealth of knowledge per se on this issue. Like you rightly said, it's kind of experiential knowledge, you know, the things that we've picked along the way, you know, and we want to share it with people, and we use them, it worked for us, and we want other people that are experts also in this field to correct us or to add, you know, to add something to what we're going to say today. Yes. We are open to suggestions, you know. Yes. We welcome every comment, actually. Yes. So thank you for saying this.
I'd just like to add also that today's discussion is going to be aimed at the whole family. So whilst the previous two discussions have been targeted at partners, two people in a relationship, today we're looking at the entire family, especially during this lockdown. It will take the entire family, you know, communicating the proper way for the entire family to actually get through this properly.
Okay, so that's really, I welcome your clarification, so that people will know that it's not just about partners that we are, you know, that we're aiming or targeting today, that the whole it's a whole family kind of discussion.
That's right.
So that's really very good. So let's reflect back on what we did last Friday. Last Friday, we talked about building a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
And we talked about, we gave some little tips on how to build a healthy relationship. And one of the things we talked about, the key ingredients to building a healthy relationship is communication. And so we felt that today, let's actually dig deeper and talk more on communication. So that's the angle that we're coming from today. Hence, communication, the foundation of a healthy relationship. Okay? So, having said that, you see, a relationship does not work in vacuum. So you cannot, people don't just have a relationship and just stay dormant. There are things that will help to a relationship to flourish, to blossom. And the things, you need for a healthy relationship, you need partners, families. As we are in the lockdown, they need to actually talk to one another. They need to open up. There should be an open communication. And then, so that when people are irritable, when people are distressed, when people are emotional, because people are talking to one another, they'll find solutions, they'll have strategies to deal with some of those issues. So, but we're not just talking about communication. So if we go to the slide, the background slide, Gloria, so we're not just talking about just communication. Everybody communicates. Everybody talks, but are you communicating? We all make noises.
Yeah.
So because if you are talking and people aren't getting what you're saying, they are not communicating. They are just making empty noises. And we all make sounds. But is the sound the one that transmits a message clearly? Is the sound that you're making the one that people buy into and see, get to understand what you're saying? So how are you communicating to people? So what we are talking about today is effective communication. Communication that is not, something that is not miscommunication, whereby you don't have a breakdown. So through effective communications, we create healthy relationships. We create trust, understanding, loyalty, bond, closeness. That's what's effective communication. That's what it does. And that's why it's imperative that we work on our communication with our children, with our partners, with our family members, both nuclear and extended family members. But then if you run it out life beyond COVID, with our colleagues at work, with those in the shops that we meet, with people in our communities, in our neighborhoods. So we're not just looking at the lockdown time, whereby we need effective communication to survive the stress, the emotions of this time. But we're looking at life beyond COVID, when we will all go back to what we used to do, when we go back to our schools and colleges, when we go back to our busy life in the offices, when we go back to our community activism and whatever we do. When some of us that are counselors, we go back to, to work with our, people in our constituents and in our wards. So we need effective communication. It is very paramount that we actually use this time to polish and work on our communication skills and styles. So we need also, like I've been saying, And I can't say it enough. We need communication to resolve conflicts. Do you want to say something? Because I think you're itching to say something. Gloria, did you want to say something?
Okay.
What happened to your lost?
That's fine. I'm just trying, because there are background noise, I'm trying to cut out as much as possible.
Yeah, so I didn't lose it. So when I said something about effective communication being very important if we are going to resolve conflicts and problems, and if we're going to make decisions, important decisions regarding way forward, what are we going to do after COVID? How are we going to go back to school? What kind of job are we going to go into now? So how do we do our savings? How do we try? Are we traveling, going on holidays? Are we going abroad? Are we doing, having our holidays in the country, within the country? So decisions are to be made with now and beyond COVID. But if we don't know how to communicate and, and make decisions, then it will be a problem. So, but another thing about communication is, whilst patterns of communications may differ according to our personal styles, each of us, we have our own our identities, and our identities come across when we communicate with people, whether we like it or not. You will know people, their identity, where they're coming from. You will know their family preferences. You know their social norms, their values, their beliefs. You actually know even their religion. Yeah?
Those things affect the way they communicate, right?
Exactly. So you know everything when they communicate. Their faith, when they express their opinions, their views, it comes across. And that's why communication is very, very important, and effective communication.
It's a skill worth learning to have, because it's the way a relationship is either built or broken up. So what we say is important, and how we say things.
It's important. And also having knowledge of diversity.
Yeah.
You know what, I keep talking about diversity. Most people think, oh, it's because she runs a charity that is called Diversity House. But diversity is important in everything that we do. In all walks of life, diversity is important. So knowledge of diversity, which is another thing that maybe another discussion that we'll be having down the lane, because people need to understand and appreciate diversity. Because your knowledge of diversity, knowing the different social categories, knowing the different cultural worldviews will help you when you are trying to ever transmit your message or receive and decode your message. It comes in very handy.
It does.
It does.
Especially, we're beginning to live in a very diverse world, aren't we? Diverse communities, and unless we know how to interact and live with one another, we're going to continue to have clashes in our relationships.
Exactly. In schools more so.
Yeah.
Where you have our schools, especially now in Kent, our schools are becoming very, very, diverse. And our streets, like I look at the local streets in Swell here, in the past, say 5 years ago, it was mainly mainstream. But now, we live in a cosmopolitan Swell. We do live in that. People speaking more than 50 different national languages. Could you believe that? And so, to be able to interact and understand these different nationalities, you've got to have idea of diversity.
Yeah.
You've got to be aware of how words are spoken and used in those places.
Talking about diversity, obviously, like you rightly said at the beginning, being a woman of color in local authority. And, I was the first Black woman to be elected into the Conservative Party, for example. And I was the first Black woman to participate in the mayoral. So when I became the first Black deputy mayor, talking about diversity, even things like the hat or the cap that you've got to wear, the headgear.
Yes.
And with, matching it with my hairstyle.
Yes.
I had hair out there, and I got this headgear that was so narrow, and it was like, how do I fit this in? But obviously, because they've never had to deal with somebody like me wearing that hat, so it was never a problem until I became a deputy mayor. So I had to adjust my hat, my hair,
yes,
to fit into that. One of these days, I'm going to show you the photo of how it looked.
Exactly. So it's important that we think about diversity in everything that we do.
Definitely. In all walks of life, actually.
Exactly. So if we quickly move to, the communication, there's so much complexities when it comes to communication. So like we rightly said, communication in relationships, be it parental relationship, be it, intimate partner, kind of partnership relationship, partners, husbands and wives and boyfriends and girlfriends and whatever it is, be it with colleague in workplace relationship or school teacher and people's relationship, whatever relationship it is, it's a very, very, communication is a very, very complex thing. And, it's very strategic also. It's a strategic human activity. And so people need to take, communication into account when they're doing things, and it takes place, communication takes place in highly emotional in situations, you see, whereby people will either be telling you about their likes, their dislikes, or telling you about things that they mean so much, matter so much to them. You see, so communication, it comes in such situations. You don't distance yourself when you're communicating, believe me. You're not so neutral, you can't be neutral when you're talking about something. Or communicating or transmitting a message. A part of you goes into that message that you're
That's right.
Or you're decoding actually. So, when somebody actually sends a message to you, part of you goes into the decoding.
Yeah.
That's why sometimes you talk about misconceptions. Because somebody transmitted a message to you and you decoded it the way you thought it should be decoded.
Based on your own internal structures as well.
And your worldview.
That's right.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So this, that because communication happens in, it's intimate, it's a kind of, in intimate situations. So it's better done actually face to face. But with technology now, we say communication is better done face to face. But there are also now, with the, this technological world we find ourselves, with the thousands of gadgets and platforms, do we now say that face-to-face communication is no longer important? I don't know what to say about that, but I totally still believe that face-to-face conversation is important. But during this COVID, we are actually tailoring the way we are communicating. I love what's happening now. We're becoming very, very innovative.
That's right.
Becoming so innovative. People that would some people in the past wouldn't want to send emails or make a phone call. They prefer to meet you somewhere in the town center, at the coffee shop to talk about things. But they can't. With the lockdown, you've got to adjust. You've got to adapt the way you communicate with people. So we see that it's not just the usual, enter your car, rush down to a pub to talk to somebody. It's no longer leave your office and go on outreach. to go see somebody somewhere. You can do your outreach sitting down at home. You could communicate with somebody in Australia, even during this lockdown, using portals. And you've seen them, and they're dancing and cooking. And you're all laughing, having a party, drinking, sharing, having tea party online and seeing one another and seeing the facial expressions. So the ways of talking and communicating are really very, changing a lot. And more so during this lockdown. There are many gadgets that are now coming out that people are using. So we've got to also build in these gadgets, because communication is not just face-to-face communication. Communication is not just about you and I. There are lots of people that can involve in the same communication. Communication also is not just about you vocalizing something. So communication has both non-verbal and verbal way of delivering your messages. And so in the next slide, we're going to look at these different modes of communicating with people. So
it's also interesting, one viewpoint I have, especially when you were talking about the, going out for coffees and things like that. Whilst we may not be able to do it, but I can tell you this, I cannot wait for when I can meet up with my friend and give them a hug after the lockdown. I cannot wait for when I can meet up with my kids, my grown kids, and just cuddle, and that must be said, that whilst it's great that we can do this, and there is no limitations to me understanding how you're communicating with me, because I can see you, I can read your body language, I can see all those things, but that physical touch it's missing. So I long for when we can be able to do that again.
exactly.
With regards to complexity of to the complexity of communication.
Exactly.
Language barrier.
Yes, and
I met years ago working in Germany. I met a German man who was married to a Thai lady. And, she could not speak any English. She could not speak any German.
Yes.
And he could not speak any Thai. So, it was the weirdest, thing that I've ever witnessed. But somehow they communicated. It left us, when we met them, it left us with days, many days just wondering how those two communicated. But, it just goes to show that there are different ways with the complexity. There are ways that people still manage to communicate. Because what I'm telling you now is actually a true story.
I've seen people like that. Like that. Now, funny that you said it. Last year, I was in Germany. I was in Germany, actually. I was at Bonn for the UN World Global Conference in Bonn, yeah? And one of the people that came to see me when I was in the hotel, Marriott's Hotel, which is at the UN World Conference Center, was, a Nigerian lady came to see me, but she married a German man. And they just, because the German man was working in Nigeria and they met and, they moved back to Germany. The man's English is just nothing to write home at all. I think it's just like hello or so will be the best or something like that. Because I think the man was working with this German road construction company in Nigeria.
Okay. Julius Berger.
And the woman, they met and they fell in love, and you wonder how they fell in love. So that's the complexity of the language of this communication. Because I think it's the body language and the eyes and the smile. So all
There's
those
this,
things.
yeah, there's so
Yeah,
many ways to do it, so many ways to
exactly.
communicate,
Exactly.
and
Mm.
still have a healthy relationship despite the language barriers and
Exactly.
lockdown, not even being able to meet up and what have you. Yeah.
And the touch also. People forget that for some cultures, touch matters a lot.
Yeah.
Physical contact is very important. And it's the way that we communicate how we feel about people.
And if you imagine a baby, a newborn baby who does not understand per se your
Mhm,
spoken language as such,
mhm,
but responds to your touch,
mhm.
so yeah, with the complexity comes also the various ways with which we can overcome these complexities and make a reasonable conversation out of within our relationships to build a strong one.
Exactly, exactly. I totally agree with you, Gloria. So if we move to the next slide, and we've been talking about communication. So now let's bring the theoretical aspect to our conversation, because we've been just talking and talking through our own worldview, our perspective of what we think effective communication should look like. But if we now go and see how it's been defined actually, so one of the ways that communication has been defined, it says that communication is how we transfer information from one another. So that's really good, transfer. But I would have liked to hear the way we also receive it. Will it not be nice to add that communication is how we transfer and receive?
I guess the reason why you're saying that is because it's a two-way thing, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's interesting that the image in this slide is actually of represents two people sitting
Yeah.
opposite each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that sometimes we can have communication with ourselves, whereby we are speaking to our inner self. Okay.
Oh, yeah, soliloquizing, is it?
Yeah, but yeah, but at the end of the day, we are talking to the inner person. Okay,
Okay.
with our physical person communicating with the real us that is deep within us. But what you were saying is quite right. Communication is just not one way
Yeah.
stream.
Mm.
Okay, it's going to be speaking and listening, or transferring and receiving.
Exactly. I
Yeah,
feel that.
you're quite right.
That's why I think I needed to add that
Mm-hmm.
transferring and receiving, the recipient, the person remitting the message. So
Mm-hmm.
these two people will be working together to decode and understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And so with communication, you see, like I rightly said at the beginning of this discussion, I said something about making noises. We all make sounds, but will people understand those sounds?
Mm.
Or we are making noise, we're just making senseless noises. So to have effective and successful communication, whereby people will understand our thoughts, our ideas, people will understand what we expect from them, because that's the reason for making communication, isn't it? You want to share your views, your opinions. You want people to understand your needs, your desires, your wants. You want people to understand your expectation, what I expect from you. So, and your goals. If you are actually saying something and people aren't understanding any of these things, they're not picking up on what you really want. They're not picking up on the directions where you are going. Then your success, your communication has been in vain.
It's almost like you're trying to, reach somebody on the phone, and they're not picking up, or there is, an interception somewhere between that transmission, there's most likely going to be a breakdown in that transference of information from one end to the other, isn't it?
I'm happy that you said breakdown. That's exactly what it is. When a communication has not been effective, has not been successful, and then we refer to that kind of communication as a breakdown, because what happened is that you've been saying things, you've been making some noises, and nobody understood. To them, it's just like when somebody, and you don't actually understand what they're talking about. So that's a breakdown. You feel within yourself that you're actually sending out messages there. And you say, why don't they understand what I'm saying? Is it that I'm not coming out? What's going on here? It's because you're not coming out clean. You're not transmitting your viewpoints clearly. People are unable to understand your thoughts, your opinions, your needs. So
it's also, sorry to interject, it's also possible that you may be communicating clearly.
Yeah.
But the person or the group of people to whom you're communicating are choosing not to. So it's a two-way stream, isn't it?
Yeah, it could be. It could be that your end block their mind.
Yeah, exactly. I've worked with young people who, and sometimes because of where they're coming from, background or what have you, home life, and you're trying to communicate with them, and they just refuse to accept anything that you've got to say to them. So this is why it's also important for us to have the right definition of what it is. It is one giving and the other receiving, and both parties must be willing to effectively connect. Else, that communication will not flow. There will be, like you said, a breakdown in that communication.
Exactly. So that neatly brings us to the elements of communication, because I've been saying sound, noise. When you make sounds and noises and people don't really understand what you're saying, but there are things that make up communication. So I said something initially when I said communications could be verbal or non-verbal communications. So let's break down the percentages of the different mix-ups of communication. And I'm quoting a lady called Lynn Maid, wrote something in 2003 actually, whereby she actually graded, and puts percentage on the different aspects or elements of communication. For instance, Lynn Maid said that the words that we speak, spoken words, when we say something, that these spoken words make up just 7% of our communication. So the spoken word is just minute. That's not the bulk of the way we communicate, actually. And then she went ahead to say that 38% of the way we communicate is based on the voice and our tone. So when we say the voice and tone, the pitch, the volume could be high, could be low, and some pitch could be, like a ball, shaky kind of, So there are different ways. People have different vocal cords. And I've been told that in some cultures have very loud vocal cords, they can make very high noise. That could be generalization, because I've seen some people in the mainstream culture that have very loud voices also. And also, another aspect of communication, and I think the bulk of the communication that we make, if people are listening, and I'm sure that our participants are listening and taking notes, is that the bulk of the communications that we make is actually that of our body language, it's, which comprises of our posture, our stance, which our facial expression, the the proximity, how close we are, the space and all that, the eye contact. So all these are classified under body language. Funny enough, we're talking about social distancing.
Yeah.
So for cultures that don't like social distancing, and that's how they communicate. They don't like social distancing. They like close proximity. How do you think that this culture will be faring during this lockdown?
I think it's possible. One of the reasons why we have seen a higher than normal high death rate amongst the BAME community, because we don't have the concept of social distancing within our communities.
Mm-hmm.
We like to feel, we like to touch, we like to visit, we like to sit down together, we like to, we like to share. And I'm not saying it's the only thing. There are a lot of reasons.
There are a lot of other things involved.
Yes, but this could well be a reason for doing that. Even this is why we meet in gatherings like weddings. Our weddings are not one or two people. We have large, gatherings of people during our wedding. We go to church, where again it's all about people, and I think a lot of us are struggling and during this lockdown because of that. And talking about
can I come in? Yeah. It's not just within our community. We don't just do this close proximity just within our community, but even in our places of work. And you know that most of us work in human industries. We work in caring industries. And if you notice the way people from our culture behave when we're at work, our bedside manners at work is something. But let me be honest with you. Many of my service users, when they go to hospital, the close hospital here is Medway Hospital. When they come back, that is my service users that are from the mainstream communities. When they come back, they say, "Oh, I saw your sister today." Yeah, that's what I saw. Your sister, she was so kind to me when others were not listening to me. She comes, she said, "Oh, she helps me. She combs my hair. She hugs me. She see that." You see, we are, and I told you also, and I'm not supposed to be saying about myself, but during this COVID lockdown, I happened to take somebody, a family member, to hospital in London. And I saw, some of the BME community staff, they weren't distancing at all. And they weren't wearing anything. They were coming so close and being so kind and laughing, and you will think we are not in the situation where we were. And so they were still behaving normal, trying to be kind and normal, and that kind of thing. Yes. And so even in hospitals, so they will not put that distance. They will not run away. Like somebody, one person in the pharmacy that we went to buy medication, and this person rushed into the next room. No, into the next office space for us to put our contactless card to pay for the medication. This person ran away, and you will really, actually, at the end of it all, my family member that came with me to the pharmacy said, "Maybe this person thinks something that we have COVID." I said, and this person was questioning herself, "Do you think we have COVID?" I said, "No, we don't have COVID. But this is somebody from a different culture." But the BME person will not run away. Yeah. So, and that's how proximity works with us. We don't really have the concept of social distancing, because you think that you are maltreating the person, and because we are hospitable people, and being hospitable is trying to grab somebody and make the person a member of your household.
That's right.
That's what it is.
Yeah. I want to talk on just touch on eye contact.
Yes. Oh, yes. That's important.
That
Yes.
is, an aspect. And again, sorry to those viewers who may not understand this, but I
Yes.
like to bring it because, as a mother from the BAME community, there's one thing that my kids need. In public, when you mess about, it's not my words that will correct you.
No, no.
It's the look.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Words speak loud. I speak louder than words.
I tell you, that look, and even having worked, for so many years as a school teacher, my school kids will often go, Miss, don't look at me like that.
Exactly, because you see, the fact is this. Eye contact.
Yeah.
Well, let me clarify BEM, because some people may not know what BEM is. So BEM stands for Black, Asian, Minority, Ethnic Communities. BAME. That's what that stands for, BEM. Okay? So, or in essence, we talk about Eurocentric and ethnocentric cultures. Okay? So within this culture, the ethnocentric culture, our cultural worldview, eye contact means a lot. You see, eye contact is the way whereby you show respect to elders, to people in authority. And that's why when I go to talk, do some presentation in prisons, I actually bring it up and say, some of our young people are in the criminal justice system because of that Eurocentric psychological way of diagnosing things or analyzing situations. So you find a young male from the ethnic minority community or been accused of, let me cite an instance. The girlfriend from the mainstream community accused this young male, black male, of being aggressive and bodily, the big one that is the grievous bodily damage or something that they call it. And so they dragged this young ethnic minority guy in front of the magistrate. And before you could say Jack Robinson, the young man, because he's in the presence of authority, a wig and gowned gentleman. So what would he do? He will bend his head. The jury all sitting around and watching. The prosecutors are there. The magistrate is there. The accuser is somewhere there. And as far as he just saw them, these are people in authority. They have to decide his fate. What does he do? Culture steps in immediately. People in authority, don't disrespect them. Don't look them in the eyes. It's disrespectful. It's violent. It's confrontational. So what does he do? There, he bends his head. No more eye contact. And then they say, yes, look at him. Doesn't show remorse. He did it. He's guilty. You could see how guilty he is. That's transferring the Eurocentric way of making eye contact, because within the Eurocentric culture, eye contact is important. You've got to look people straight in the eyes.
It's a sign of confidence and
not being guilty. It's a sign of not being guilty. It's a sign of being confident. But within the ethnocentric, some of the ethnocentric cultures, look at people that are older to you or people that are in authority, looking them straight in the eyes and not turning away means you're confrontational, you're aggressive, you're unruly and very rude. He's a gentleman that needs to be watched. He's a dangerous person. That's how they classify you. You see?
I hope that judgment was corrected.
So, no, but some of them, some were there because this young female was jealous that this guy is moving on with another girl, and framed them that, oh, he's touched me, he beats me, do that. And because this guy could not stand up for himself, could not even look straight in people's eyes and say, oh, go read some research on the overrepresentation of Black males in criminal justice system. We're not saying that all of them that are in prison are innocent people, but also some are there that are not meant to be there. And it's because of cultural transference also.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think we've clarified that one, and hopefully, you say if you live in Rome, you better start behaving like the Romans. We also need to change. If that's what society where we live in wants us to do, if they want us to look straight in the eyes and, and make contact, let's also be confident enough to look people straight in the eyes. Because we've crossed the ocean, we've crossed the seas, and here we are now. So we've got to, assimilate some of the things and integrate it with the way we do things.
Especially if you walk into a room full of people, maybe for an interview or something, it is important, for you to look people in the eye and be bold, Exactly. Again, it's that cultural values and interpretations of communication style that you need to be aware of your environment as well.
Exactly. Well said. Well said. So we've talked about technology and the impact of this technological world we find ourselves now, that we're not just, doing face-to-face. Even when we're doing, conversing and communicating face-to-face, I'm communicating with you now. Although time and zone separates us, because you are in Medway and I'm in Swell. But I'm seeing you, it looks as if actually you are sitting opposite me.
That's true.
See what I mean? I could see when you smile and when you're nodding and all that. I could see every body movement and, your body language, even now that you, touching your nose. So, yes. But so technology is helping us to, to bridge that gap, So we have different ways, wired ways and wireless ways of communicating now. We have ways of being in the same room, chat room, like I'm in a chat room now with you, using Zoom, and you use things like Skype and other ways, Facebook, live streaming and all that, all sorts of things you could use to see people and have video conferences and all that. You have Collaborate, you have Microsoft Teams, you have all sorts of gadgets now, and that you could see people visually online. You have mobile phones, you have your emails, you've got your text messaging, you've got WhatsApp and all sorts of things that you could use. So it's actually, communication is becoming easier, Think about in the past, to talk to somebody, say in Australia, you have to write a letter, isn't it? You've got to write a letter and wait for weeks to get the response from this person. Yeah? Or you have to send a telegram. So God, I'm sure that some people now don't even know what telegram is.
No, they've never seen it.
They've never seen it. They don't know what it is. Some people don't know what fax or fax. They never saw a fax machine. Although now you can do fax through your printer. So some printers you can still fax messages, but you can fax message on your computer. You fax message, but some people don't even know what it is because there's no need for even faxing that kind of thing.
No.
There's no need for it. So
I just want, a word of caution here. Obviously, when we're looking at communication, especially to do with the lockdown with families, okay, we are talking about how we as, members of a family that live together, communicate. Whilst it is, obviously technology has enhanced the way we do this, a lot. But I will be, concerned where people within the same home, the same house, are communicating via text messages. You are in the next door and you're sending me a text message now. I should be, wondering, why you can't just approach me. Unless,
yeah,
if obviously there are reasons, there might be even within the home, there could be a need for somebody to self-isolate. That's okay. But where things are working perfectly, again, to facilitate that, human contact, interaction, all the things that we need during this lockdown, it is important for us to perhaps just put away the technology and do this physical thing. Go to the kitchen and meet mom and chat with mom if she's in the kitchen. Go to your daughter's bedroom and just sit down and have a conversation. A young lady said to me today that she's had to turn her mobile phone off going to bed because she just gets so busy. Every little thing she's picking up the mobile phone, and when she was struggling to fall asleep, she was checking what time it is. And sometimes these, technological advancement really obviously enhance and help the way we do things and communicate. But I will say that we should apply caution.
yes, I agree with you. There's pros and cons in this technology that we're talking about. If we use it, everything is about balancing. If we balance it very well, it is very, very useful gadgets for us to, for growth, But when we're at home, we need to, and we want to have very good relationship with people. And more so this time of the lockdown, you're not going to have the excuse that because I'm at school, I'm going to message mom that I'm on my way back from school. If you're not saying, or if my girlfriend and my partner, I want to let them know that I'm on the traffic, or there's traffic, I may be coming back late, or I'm having to my, so I can come home early. You don't have that excuse to give to anybody. So, but some people actually find comfort in that mobile phone. They're always like that. And
then ignoring everyone else in the room or in the house.
They're mumbling. When that like quickly like that, you wonder how can somebody be typing like this as if they're typing on proper computer, But when you now say hello, how are you? So it is dangerous. It's not meant to be like that. You see, we need to handle our technology with caution also. We need to be very sensitive the way we handle these gadgets at this time.
So rather than actually having that time with one another within the home, you're spending it on your technology, then you're not obviously looking towards communicating effectively.
And
what you'll probably be telling that person is that, without you realizing this, it's like, I don't want to chat with you.
Oh, yeah, you have nothing valuable to say to me. That's what it is. It's body language. It's body language. You say you're blocking communication. I don't value you. I don't want to know what you want to say to me. But do you know that there's some public health hazard in using this thing all the time?
Of course.
Yeah, some people are so addicted to their mobile phone that they won't study, they won't talk to people, they isolate themselves, they just personally isolate themselves. Their technology, their gadgets is their bedmate. They love it. They can,
in fact, self-neglect because they hide behind this device. So I mean, this is why it's a great thing. I work in technology, but it's important for us to understand that if we must get the best out of using these things, we must apply caution and be sensible.
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you for clarifying that, Gloria. So we're looking at the communication and the worldview. You know, I've been mentioning that we all, the way we communicate actually reflects our worldview.
Mm-hmm.
And for when we talk about worldview, my worldview maybe is similar to your worldview. But, you know, because we come from the same culture. So you have the mainstream worldview, the Western worldview, and you have the non-Western worldview, what we try to call the Eurocentric way of thinking, and Eurocentrism and the ethnocentrism. We have different worldviews, and our worldviews come across when we actually communicate with people. So, you know, in some cultures, let's look at the Western and the non-Western culture, the Eurocentric or Eurocentrism and the non-Eurocentric or the ethnocentrism. We've mentioned something about distance before, earlier in our discussion here. We talked about distancing, proximity. We, from our culture, we like hugging people. You see somebody on the high street, oh, somebody from my culture, even if they don't know you, my children used to say to me, Mommy, oh, I saw your sister in the high street. Because they are meant to believe that that person is my sister. Because
because of the way you've interacted with them.
Because I don't even know this person before. Then you say, oh, hello, my sister. And I say, hello. And then you stand. Not that you just said hello and waved and went away. Then you stand in the high street.
And spend at least 5 minutes.
What is 5 minutes is more than, then she comes and says, oh, I like your head, girl. Oh, it's so lovely. Who sewed your dress for you? Oh, how is daddy today? He doesn't even know who your husband is or whoever. Hi, oh, how are the children? They will talk and ask you about the dog, about the cat, about the chicken in the garden, about everything. And you spend so long talking to this person that you just saw the first time in the high street. And they're touching your hair, girl, to see, oh, so where they do it? The dress anyways. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So you get close and talk and laugh and say, okay, then I'll see you tomorrow. And then you go. That's us. And am I telling lies? But that's us.
Yeah.
So distancing, and believe me, I hate this COVID because it's taking that my pastime of standing and greeting people for 100 years in the high streets. It's taking it away from me. And I'm looking forward to the day that I'll go back to my high street or wherever I go to and just stand and smile and wave and ask somebody about everything about their lives. Because that's how we socialize. Mm. But some people don't do that. Some people, you just, hello, it's sunny today, and off they go. And that's the culture.
And you just talk about the weather.
Oh, you just the weather. Oh, hello. Oh, it's sunny today. It's good. It's lovely. Oh, it's sunny. And that's it. And everybody go their way. It's just sunny. So we all have our worldview. We all have a way that, we use our spaces, And then let's look at distancing in the Western culture. I never knew about this because within my culture, we don't talk about distancing and space and all that. We don't do that. Yeah. So recently, and maybe because I'm married into the Western culture, so I begin to watch and see what's going on. And I go and read and say, oh, why all this is happening? So yes, space and distance means a lot to some of this, to this Western culture, whereby they said you have different kinds of spaces. Do you understand this? Wow. I'm still getting my head around it. It says you have the intimate zone, and you have the one that is the personal zone, and you have the social zone. My goodness. Maybe I've been jumping into people's and invading their spaces, and I didn't know this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Think about it. Maybe I've been invading people's intimate zone all this while. without even realizing it. Because it says that intimate zone, you need to keep a distance of 15 cm to 46 cm. That means people, within this distance, this span of, space is for your friends and family members, your immediate, people that are very, immediate to you. So these are the kind of space, the distance you give to these people.
I agree with that, but there are occasions where you may well need to the word I'm going to use, but not necessarily meaning that, is to invade someone's intimate space or intimate zone. I know for some of the young people that I teach, that although they don't want you to come close,
yes,
but I'm often able to reach them when I pull up my chair,
yes,
into that space, that personal space,
yes,
and suddenly, okay, the wall drops.
Yeah.
Because I've not come to them as one who has come to maybe challenge them. I've come as one who is interested. So I pull up a chair and I sit right next to them. It's like I leave them with no space, nowhere to run to.
Yeah.
But to just give in. And you find that by the time I leave, they are okay. Whatever barrier that was there has suddenly been broken. Yes, it's a cultural thing and what have you, but it is also sometimes important for you to know the person you're dealing with. Okay, and also the way you approach these intimate zones also matters, because if you approach it in a confrontational manner, that's when it's threatening, it's uncomfortable. But if, for a young person, for example, who's been going through so much at home, and yes, one of the biggest problems they've had is this distance from parents, from siblings at home, and then suddenly you, obviously within the confine of your classroom, for example, an open space where everybody can be a witness to what you're doing, just come and sit next to them and just chat and say, how can I help? I have found that to work and to yield positive results in many, many occasions in the past. So again, it's how you use these or how you interpret and use them.
Yeah, that's great. That's good clarification, yes. So we shouldn't be very rigid about this.
No.
It all boils down to getting to understand when to try to bridge that space, the intimate space, isn't it? Okay, you also says there's a personal zone whereby the distance that should be kept is between 46 cm and 1.2 meters. I didn't know that. So do you think
that after with COVID-19 it's now 2 meters?
That's now 2 meters, yeah? Okay, so you see, personal distance, it's 2 meters, it's true. And then you have the social distancing, the social zone, whereby in the past, and I think when we go back to work, it will be more than, it will be between 2 meters, not 1.2 meters. It will be 2 meters to 3.6 meters now. When we go back to work, they will increase it.
So little did we actually hear of social zone and social distancing. We thought that social distancing was something that was coined up only because of the coronavirus.
Exactly, but it's been there. That's what I'm telling you. It's been there all this while, and it may be because it's not within our cultural worldview. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So. So this brings us neatly now to the different communication styles. And you realize that each and every one of us have a unique communication style. So there are, I decided to use this communication style that we're looking at on this slide because it tallies very well with the relationship the kind of relationship we want to build, particularly at this time of the COVID lockdown, and we're beyond that. I didn't want to use the one, that some psychologists and all that have written, or experts in communication have written about passive aggressive and all that. I didn't want to go into that kind of communication style. I decided to use this kind of simple and straightforward and calming kind of styles that people will, when you talk about it, people will easily associate themselves to any one of those. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And the way we speak, the way we communicate talks about our identity. I keep saying it. It talks about who you are. It tells, if a good psychologist is somebody that actually can keep calm and listen and watch people, we know the kind of person you are by the way you talk and the way you try to communicate to them. So your communication style is very, very important. So it's something we need to work on, and it's also something that I will advise people not to just use one kind of communication style.
Yeah.
That you need to move in and dive out, implement any of the communication styles depending on the circumstances, on where you find it. Exactly. Mm-hmm. But having said that, the 4 different communication styles are the one they call driver. So when you use this driver kind of communication style, it says it's like, they call it driver because it's direct, going on the direct direction, and task oriented. They have a mission, there's something that needs to be achieved there. So it's straightforward, focus, and action part. Then you have this one that is the animated, so kind of the animation kind of film. Animated kind of, when you look at animations, what does it bring to mind, when you look at animations?
Movement, isn't it?
Yeah, movement.
Yeah.
Excitement, it's like, Mm-hmm. So that's the animated kind of communication style, whereby people are so, excited, people are passionate. It's based on relationship forming and all that. And you have what they call the amiable. Amiable kind of communication style is like supportive and avoids changes and confrontation. Yeah?
Mm.
Does it look, to me it sounds a bit dull, innit?
I know a lot of people who actually fall into that category. Especially in some cases, even they are very placid. It's not so much because they don't want to rock the boat, but that's who they are. Yeah.
But so it would be nice to actually dive in and use any of this depending on, because it's not every time that you want confrontation.
Mm.
So it's not every time that you're very excited and, very, want to build relationship. It's not sometimes you want to create boundaries, don't you? So it would be nice that your audience, the audience you want to communicate with, the message you want to send. And it should be actually subject-oriented, the kind of subjects you want to talk about.
Yeah. To
determine the style you should use. I think so.
Yeah.
You have
who you are. Yeah. Who you are. If I'm not an animated person, there's no point me looking at somebody who is animated and try to copy them. I'll just make a fool of myself. And no one should be also comparing me with somebody who is very animated when they're talking. Mm-hmm. Oh, you're not like her, you're not like him. But I am me.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. But my advice is to try to mix and match depending where you find yourself.
As much as lies within you, I would say. Because don't forget, these are not, when we're talking about communication styles and skills, it's not something that you learn overnight. We talked about the complexities of this thing, and therefore, because it's a complex topic. It will probably take us a whole lifetime to keep learning and improving, the ways we communicate and what have you as well. So,
it's a skill anyway. So to acquire any skill, you need to learn.
Mm.
And so why not we begin with this lockdown, trying to polish, and I keep saying, polish our communication skill.
Yeah.
The way, and so that we can develop some effective way of communicating. That's another thing.
Especially, I know for people with young children, for example, it's been really difficult to explain to them why they are stuck inside. It is no longer necessary or applicable for you to just, rigidly tell them, oh, is this. Somehow you may have to become very animated in the way you break down. You may have to develop these skills in order to keep them, excited at home. I know some parents have had to learn how to do drama. Others have learned how to dance, and I get what you mean. I think the lockdown is the perfect situation for us to learn these skills.
Exactly. Great. So that's wonderful. And we talked about the analytical. The analytical kind is that one that provides accurate and detailed. It's like a lecture kind of. You analyze things, you draw them down to the minutest strand and explain things, So it's kind of detailed, it's kind of driven towards detail, giving in-depth information and all that. So, and I keep saying, and I will not say it enough when I say that our communication style is our identity. It says so much about who we are, So the way we also communicate, the style that we use, will determine how the audience, our audience, the person that is receiving the information, the way the feedback, they will give to us. I say sometimes when I attend, there are some lectures that I attend. Oh, I just go to sleep. I can't help myself. And some people, when I go to some events or conferences or whatever, I find myself, I buy some meals because I don't know the communicator that I'm going to see that day. It could be the one that has a lot of good things to say, but the way of transmitting it is so boring, that I will just start snoring. To avoid the loud noises of my snoring, I better get myself some mints. So I'll be sucking away, so that I don't go to sleep. So yeah, so why? So we need to, I don't know how to, I'm lost for words, but what I'm telling you is that we've got to try to mix the way, if we know the audience we have, we've got to talk to them. So sometimes, we should be aware that the way we communicate, we may be showing our identity, and people may be judging us according to our delivery. They will think, oh, this person is weak. Oh, this person is an orator. Oh, this person is knowledgeable, because you just talk in and some people actually have the knowledge, but the way they transmit this message is not perfect. It's not right with what they're trying to impact. You see what I mean?
Yeah. Anyway, there's also the need to, apply caution here, because again, there are certain communities that are very animated, very passionate when they talk. And it could well also be that when they are upset, they are just as passionate. And so they are termed aggressive.
Oh, yes.
That is not their identity. okay? Because your interpretation of the passion and the style of communication indicates aggression, doesn't mean you just look at this person and say their identity, the aggressive person. So it's also important once we're looking at, yes, my communication style being my part of my identity. Your interpretation of what that style is giving, the information that style is given, okay, could also be the wrong one. So therefore, it's important when you are classifying me per your standard and your worldview, just be careful that I may not see myself as the way you view me.
Yes, exactly. And also that we said our communication styles, our identity, does not mean that because you are, like you rightly said, there's somebody that, your delivery is so passionate, that does not mean that you're a violent or aggressive person. And also, because you're coming across as very placid, does not mean you're not an exciting person.
Exactly, exactly.
It does not mean that. But what we are trying to say is that you need to look at, be aware of your circumstances, of the environment, of the topic, of the people, your audience, the recipients, and so tailor your delivery of whatever message you have to suit the situation you find yourself. Because we need to be aware that every communication style has its pros and cons. It has their strengths and their weaknesses. So, and that's why we need to be very, to be aware of the different kinds of communication styles that we are using, and make sure that we match it.
I agree, totally. Because people are judging us based on what we are exhibiting. You're right.
Exactly. So you've got to adjust. You've got to adjust your style to avoid conflicts and ensure that people understand you clearly.
Yes, right.
That's right. What's important here. That's what I'm trying, the message I'm trying to put out.
Right. Go.
And, yeah. So if we now look at what styles do we closely, so it doesn't mean that you can't fit people. I hate labeling things and putting them in boxes. So I don't believe in rigidity. There should be room for flexibility and fluidity also. So, but that's why I say that we need to look at some of the table that we've got there and look at the one we are closely, not that is the one that you're a perfect match, because nobody, you're not created and tailor-made and fixed and dumped into one style. Totally, no. We have a way of moving from swinging from one style of communication to the next style of communication. So that's how we are. We are human beings, and we are not static people. And so, if we look at the strengths and the probable stumbling blocks of the different communication styles, let's look at the driver direct communication style. The strength of that driver direct kind of communication style, just like the name says, like a driver. Imagine a driver, a taxi driver. You enter the taxi driver and you say to taxi driver, listen, I'm going to number 1 Gillingham Road. Okay? Just, if he knows where he's going, he just puts the fare, tap the fare something. If he doesn't know, the meter, he taps the meter, he start running. If he doesn't know, he first of all look at the sat nav, plot the postcode, PM, and then the meter, and off he goes. No turning back, straight, focus, direct to the tax. He doesn't. So the driver kind of style is that one that is practical, decisive. That's the strength. He's practical, he's decisive, he's confident, he appears to be confident, he's clear to the point. He has a task focus, goes straight to what he's doing or what he wants to transmit. But the stumbling block here is that with the driver direct kind of style, is that it appears to challenge others. People, because it's like clear point, pure, focus, straight. People, some people feel challenged.
Mm-hmm.
They feel scared.
Some people find them overbearing as well. Because
Exactly, overbearing. Yes, very domineering, they say they are. They also misjudge them and say, it's the need of control. It's always wanting to control other people.
Yes, right.
And they also think they're overly independent.
Mm-hmm.
So they misjudge them.
Which could be a threat to a certain kind of people, right?
Relationships, yes, yeah, exactly. It could be. And they will also term them as impatient, and which may not be true. And then, sorry, let me have a sip of my water.
Yeah, go for it.
And then you have the animated type of style, which they call the talkative. I remember when I was little. That terminal, that word is what I used to hear all the time. Oh, that person is talkative. I don't hear people use that term any longer.
No.
You hear it often?
Not often, no.
So the animated kind of, the chatterbox.
Yeah, that's what we hear. That's what we hear.
Yeah,
a chatterbox.
The chatterbox kind of person. So it's kind of friendly, it's passionate, it's amiable and approachable, it's likes intimacy, likes to initiate thoughts, you know what I mean? And likes to involve other people, like to carry other people in whatever they're saying or doing. That's good, it's nice. But also, the stumbling block is this person that appears approachable, kind, nice, all sorts of things, exciting. Could be suffering from oversensitivity. Yes, could be overly sensitive.
It's true. So they use just this talkativeness or being a chatterbox to cover up
their true feelings.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And also, they may lack control. They may. We don't say they do. They may. Then we need to be careful and not overgeneralize. They may actually lack follow through. They could. Sometimes some people talk and they forget all the promises and everything they say. You know what I mean? And they will not follow through because actually they forgot that they said things like that.
It's almost like you are meant to go from your house to maybe about 2 or 3 houses from your end to deliver something.
Yeah.
But on the way, because of the very nature of this person, they meet person A, and before they get to the house that they're meant to be going, they've actually missed the appointment, for example. They've forgotten that they had a deadline to meet.
Yes, yeah, they could get distracted. Not that they
very easily.
Yeah, and they could be unprepared to deliver all they say. And also, they could. You see, I keep saying they could. I didn't say they are. They could be disorganized also. Those kind of people could. All over the place. But they could be disorganized also. And they are prone to subjectivity when it comes to decision making. They're not analytical. So when they think and they do things, emotions emotion.
Yeah.
Not they're not objective. They're not like science driven or people that look at data and figures and evidence based.
It's also sometimes that they don't actually stop to think about what they're saying. They're just getting it out.
Just
Until perhaps later on, the same words they have spoken will now come back and haunt them because they're giving proper thought to what they were saying. That's a drawback.
That may be the drawback. So with any of these things, the stumbling block, we are not very sure. We say potentially, maybe. So we are not. It doesn't relate to
everyone.
Every person that have that kind of skill, anyways. But you have the amiable person. So the amiable skill, that a person that communicates in such a manner, it's actually time to be supportive. It seems to be patient. It seems to be predictable. Everybody say, "Oh, we know what. We know her. We know. Yeah, she's going to, or he's going to say that." So predictable. It appears to be easygoing, calm, placid, whatever language you want to use. Listens attentively and responsive to others. So this looks like the strength of this amiable person.
So they're good listeners.
They're good listeners. They're easygoing. They appear calm in situations. They just okay.
And this is where we find a lot of some men actually fall into this category.
Yeah, some of them.
It is not generally the strength of women.
No, we have women that I can cite examples. Many of them that
I'm saying. I mean, I fall into that category. Okay. But it's not generally one of our greatest strengths because we like to pour out. We just like to share. We like to, we are passionate and, that's who we are. So
we are Mother Earth, aren't we? Anyway, so another thing, so the stumbling block for this amiable type of communication is that it seems that they avoid confrontation. Yeah, they seem to avoid it, and that's why they're calm, they are, they're easygoing, and they're passive, the same. So they listen, they go along, or so they say. They're slow to change, and they are slow to, to initiate things. So they let you be the initiator of whatever talk you want.
They're very passive. They could be passive.
Yeah, and they're indecisive, it looks like. Because with that, letting you lead them, seems as if they're indecisive. And they withhold. It's the kind of people that bottle their feelings, internalize it and keep there. And finally, that leads us to the analytical person or communicator. This analytical communicator, or the skills of this person, or the strength, rests on being accurate, the accuracy of whatever they say to you. They're well prepared. They go prepare, analyze, and evidence-based. Can give you statistics and all that. And quotes about who has said it and done it before, and that's what happened.
I was dealing with one of them today.
Okay, those kind of people that will tell you that in 1917, so amount of people did so and so and so and so. And that that this COVID has come in before, but it was not like that. So they will give you the data, the statistics to back up what they're saying. They've prepared their speech and they sell it to you. And they tell you, they refer to where you should go and check it up. So it appears that this is the kind of people they are. They're also diplomatic. You can't catch them out of something. They're very tactful, very diplomatic. And they're analytical, the way their brain, the way they analyze things before they speak it out, spit it out. They analyze it in
And sometimes they just analyze as they go along. So everything, especially if they're at the receiving end,
exactly.
like they are analyzing every statement,
Exactly.
every word,
Every move, every move.
Yes.
And they appear also to be cautious and restrained.
Mm.
And they're systematic and they are detailed. They follow details. But then, the potential stumbling block we've been told about the analytical people is that they are too critical. They are too critical. They are insensitive, very clinical. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you've got to be clinical if you are using the scientific judgment in doing things. They are actually very rigid, inflexible. So it appears. And it appears that they are withdrawn, detached from things. They are overly cautious. They actually want evidence before they say or do things. They don't want to rock the boat. And they impose high standards. You can hardly meet their standards. And so this is the kind of thing. So maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but this is the potential strength. And
at the end of the day, an analytical person will be looking at this and thinking, yeah, that one is true. No, I disagree with that.
Yes.
And that's how it will run for every one of these, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So, but generally, it is so that an analytical person, because of the way they deep and dive deep into what people are saying and not saying, they come across as being overly critical.
Yeah, exactly.
Because people just say things, just, especially in a relationship. You express yourself. You don't need somebody to go analyzing why and why did you not and why did you say it this way.
Exactly.
Another area of conflict. We can move on.
And you're not in the workplace.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're looking at this building to steps to loving communication. Because at the end of the day, particularly now during this lockdown, and if we want to move smoothly and lovingly to beyond COVID, we've got to begin to learn. We've got to begin to learn how to actually communicate with people successfully and lovingly at the same time. I tell you one thing, and I know this thing that my father used to say to me. My father said, you're not too old to learn.
Of course.
I don't believe in those people that say you cannot teach an old dog a trick. New tricks, Some people say that. There's nothing like being old and teaching people.
If you want to learn, you can. If you can learn at any age, you can pick up some new skills.
Exactly.
And it actually, the Bible will say it's someone having a teachable spirit, and or not necessarily the Bible, but Christians will put it that way. Having a teachable spirit means that somebody can approach you and tell you, about some new ways that you can improve. But if you feel that you've arrived, you can't learn just because you're too old, like you said, an old dog, a new trick. Then
that's I don't believe in that old adage that says you can't teach an old dog a new tricks. That's nice, and that means when you follow that adage, that means that you stop learning. And I know the person that molded me, my father, he says to me, you stop learning when you're deep underneath. But if you're not deep 6 feet underneath, you keep learning. You must keep learning. When I come home every day, my father used to say, what new things have you learned today? What new words have you learned today? What new ideas did you learn today? And I follow that because I ask my children every day, what's new? What did you pick up today? What new lessons have you learned? Don't wait until it happens to you before you learn. Learn from other people's mistakes and make sure you don't do the same thing they did. You see what I mean? So we must, and this time of the COVID is the time to start learning, changing the old ways that we are communicating with our families, with our partners, with our children, and also ways to communicate with our workmates when the lockdown is over. We're going to go.
And also because time is obviously running out on us.
Yeah.
When we're looking at the steps to a loving communication within the relationship, we must go back to the things that we have been talking about in the past, discussions.
Yeah.
And I think one of them, just looking at the purple box down there, says, try not to belittle.
Yeah.
Because they disagree. Don't belittle your partner, don't belittle your children, just because they disagree. I think that's a very, very key thing, because, I think we said it the last time we chatted. What percentage of my input into a relationship should I contribute? 98%, 99.5%? No, it's 100%. So it's something that we all have to be doing, especially during this time of a lockdown. Yeah. Everyone needs to be putting in their very best. You treat others the way you want them to treat you.
Well said, my dear, well said.
Yes.
So for a healthy relationship to happen, whether with your children, your partner, your family, extended family members, or your work colleagues, you've got to work at the way you communicate.
Yes, you have to.
Nothing comes easy.
It's true.
So you must be reasonable. You must have reasonable expectations from your children, from your partners. The reasonable expectation is that you've got to talk to them. None of them are mind readers. If you don't open your mouth, if you don't bother to say things to them, and say it in an audible way, actually, and in a calm manner, how will they understand what you want from them? If when your partners or somebody is talking to you or your children and you're mumbling, how would they actually understand what you want? So we must remember that nobody is a mind reader. And so we must open up and talk to people and talk to them calmly and sensibly in a reasonable manner. And you've also, as the transmitter of the message, the communicator, you must actually be aware of what you want to say to people. You must be in touch with your inner self. What do I want? Your inner feelings. What do I want to achieve from this communication that I'm making with this person? Take time, pause, wait, calm. Think through your feelings and think through how it will come across when you want to share your feelings to them. Okay? So that's some of the things. We've talked about trying not to be, to belittle people. You shouldn't. Even little children. If your little children, they know when you belittle them, and they will come up with the little person syndrome. You know the little person syndrome? You know the little people have a
short man syndrome.
They have a way to react. You see, so you say, oh, you think because you're a big adult, you want to talk to me like this? Oh, stand your ground. So you've got to be respectful to them, because respect is reciprocal.
Yes, of course.
If you look at my little dog here, where stands outside and wait for me to say, please come in. A dog. And what to say? Oh, she's waiting. Look at her now. She's waiting calmly. A minute. She wants to go. Okay, I'll sit down. Okay, goodbye. Thank you. You see, that's my dog. What is she wants to go. If she has to wait for me to say, okay, goodbye, off you go. If I don't say, okay, goodbye, off you go, she stands there waiting. Not to talk of children, they're human beings. So we've got to respect one another. So as we're going quickly to the useful things to show love.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, that's great. So we've got to, I like this acronym. Think, allow, use, decide, make, learn, and complement. If we can think about this, look at it. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you could think about this.
7.
This 7. Yeah, 7. If we could think about it, think. Think before you say things. Think before you talk. Don't put your partner, don't put your child in the public in a defensive situation. Don't do that. So you think before you open your mouth to say something. Watch your behavior. Don't, demoralize people. Don't bring them down. Don't put them down a peg. That's uncalled for. And then allow. You should allow your partner or your children to save face. Don't disgrace them because you think they've done wrong. There are ways to handle that. Don't embarrass people.
I think that aspect of allow is also arguing. There are some people who just love to argue.
Oh, yes.
Sometimes I wonder where they get the energy from.
They won't let it go.
Gosh. Okay, we can move on. Yeah. You don't have to win the argument all the time, but some people just love to argue. Everything, it's like
last word. They want to have the last word.
You have to debate it. You have to can't you? Yeah, okay. Next one, use.
Use assertive communication. And that shows how confident you are about something. Some people don't, they can't come out straight to exactly tell you. They're not confident enough to stand up for themselves. You see a partner who, after spending hours to cook the delicious dinner, and the partner decides not to come home until 12 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock. And this partner wakes up and the man comes or the woman comes home and is, by then the food is so cold and this partner is furious inside. But you can't say, he or she can't say exactly how they feel. And what they're saying is, oh, it would have been nice if you came back on time. It makes somebody, that's a language. Oh, it makes somebody upset and no, don't go beating around the bush. Use the I statement. I statement is an assertive statement. It comes out clear. It says exactly how you feel.
Let's also be cautious here. Again, within a healthy relationship, you can be assertive. Sometimes in an unhealthy relationship, you are not able to be yourself. So this is why I can understand where some parties or some partners will choose not to rock the boat. They choose not to use the I, statement. But when you are in a relationship and you cannot use the I statement, there's a problem.
That's what we're saying. We're talking loving communication. So these communications happen in loving environments. Everybody's working towards having a loving kind of relationship. And we have talked in the past about unhealthy relationships. And we have said to people, you're giving them advice or suggestion on what they should do to actually get their relationship back to, the healthy state, or the next thing they should do, get counseling or whatever they should do. But if they've tried everything and it's not working, I'm not dwelling on unhealthy relationship. If it's not working, then because for their lives and that of their children, for their health, they've got to find a way out of that relationship. Because I don't advise people to keep staying in unhealthy relationships. It's not good for yourself. It's not good for you as the victim. It's not good for the perpetrator, because he could end up killing you or she could end up harming you. And it's not good for the children and anybody within that relationship. So the relationship and the communication we're looking at now, because we've talked about how to rebuild relationship, and then they're rebuilding their relationship. Their relationship is now healthy, and then to keep it healthy, they need to form very loving communication. And saying exactly what you mean contributes to having a healthy relationship. You don't want to pretend. You can't pretend to somebody that you say you love. You've got to say, my dear, I felt worried. I don't feel very happy that you didn't come back, our dinner time, and you didn't let me know what's going on with you. I wanted to know what's happening to you. And because you're in a loving relationship, the man will say, or the woman will say, my hands, I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have done that. And then that's gone. And you smile again, and relationship back on track. That's what we are looking for.
Okay. And Chrissy, I'm looking at the time. I think we've got about 10 minutes, and there are questions that I know we are going to answer.
Yes, I'm quickly going to rush this. So make daily communication something that should happen. Be open and try to communicate every day and learn. We all are learning. Relationship is not created in heaven. It's created here on earth. So you need to be learning. We're in this planet, we've got to be learning every day in order to make a relationship work. It takes time for relationship to work. Okay? So anybody that is not willing to work at their relationship, it will not have a good relationship. It's as simple as that. And also complement one another. It's really, really, it's not just about the opposite sex or whatever. Whatever relationship you find yourself, even with your children, tell them, oh, well done, you're nice, you're looking good. Oh, you did a good thing. Thank you for bringing that. That's wonderful. You're a loving daughter. You're a kind son. Oh, such an affectionate man. Things like that. Compliment them. Compliment whoever is around you. Because he said, if you say compliment somebody, they have the zeal to want to do better, to do more. And so that's what you should be doing. If people only know what they can do to have a good relationship, it doesn't take too much. There are at least some tricks to it. And if you can get those tricks, some people will be eating off your palm, off the palm of your hands. Not that you're twisting them or manipulating them, but because they want to do things for you. Okay, now that brings us smoothly to the question. I'm going to ask the questions, and Gloria, because I've been talking, I know, I don't want to be the animated kind of communicator. Let me take a breather, and you continue. So the first person asked us here, Gloria, and I know that you're going to give them the best answer. This person said to us, I'm a very bubbly person and enjoy being at the center stage of every conversation. My new partner is beginning to complain that I come across as aggressive and overbearing when I talk to them. But I think that they are just wanting to change who I am. What should I do? Gloria, what suggestion? What kind of thing do you want to say?
What I would say in this case is, firstly, it's great to hear that, in fact, for you to recognize your kind of person, because it shows that you're in touch with yourself.
Yes.
But if we were to go through, what we've looked at in some of the previous slides, talking about, what communication is. Communication, we said, is 55% body language, and only 7% spoken words. you can also begin to see why your partner may find you overbearing, especially if we look at the fact that communication is also a two-way street. But if you are, like you rightly suggested, you like to be at the center stage of every communication, I want you to make sure that you're also making room for the other person to have a say.
Mm.
You also need to maybe perhaps slow down to check in with the other person to make sure that they are understanding you.
Mm.
It's also important for you to, again, check in with the other person to make sure you're not coming across, because we've looked at different styles that could be, that potentially could be intrusive, aggressive, just to make sure that your gestures, your body language, uh, do not come across as being overbearing. So once you can go through all the things that we have discussed before as to what makes a particular style a very good one, their strengths and their weaknesses, and you are able to positively reflect. The reason I'm saying positively reflect, because so often people will want us to be who they want us to be.
Yeah, to mold
Okay,
us. Mm-hmm.
and that is not healthy.
Mm.
But you have to take it upon yourself to really reflect. Okay, fine. I'm a bubbly person and I want to be bubbly. Okay.
Mm.
But hey, am I giving my listener or my listeners an opportunity for them to chip in, to be
Mm-hmm.
part of the conversation?
Mm-hmm.
Am I even if I'm going to be the only one talking, am I checking
Mm.
with them just to make sure that they're also on board? They're listening or they're understanding, because for all I know, I might just be making the whole place rowdy and cloudy. No, not cloudy, but just rowdy and
Mm-hmm.
noisy. So it's important for you to look at those two things. Now,
Yeah.
if you find that you are tolerant, you are considerate, not tolerant, you're considerate. So when you, in your bubbly nature, you talk and then you slow down and you give the other person the chance to contribute, and
Mm-hmm.
you regularly check in just to make sure that they are still with you, you've not lost them. If you
Mm.
feel you're doing all those things, then it could well be that this new person who, like from what you said, is a new partner, okay, has not even given you the chance to
Mm-hmm.
get to know you better, to get to know who you are. Maybe they may well also be wanting to change you, like you said. But first, please have a look at what you are doing. Give them the opportunity to be part of the discussion or the conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and then you take it from there. It's what I would suggest.
Great. So I hope it's helpful anyway.
Mm.
And the next one, this lady Debbie, not real name anyway, is a mother of 3 teenagers, and she's very concerned that her children don't listen to her or take her seriously. She feels frustrated because although she's always correcting them, the children prefer to pay more attention to their dad, who rarely raises his voice at them. What would be wrong here?
This is it's a classic one for a lot of moms, right? Because
Yeah.
number one, you spend so much time with your children. So
Mm.
it could well be that familiarity.
Mm.
Have you noticed that kids sometimes will be more naughty for their moms than they are for anyone else? Because yeah, they spend more time with you. They, in some ways, take it for granted. They know how far your threats with them or for them will go. Oh,
Yes.
I'm going to take away your iPad tonight. I think they know that by the time you get into the kitchen, you start mopping the floor, you start making dinner, you would have forgotten. So kids know that they're smart. Children are very, very clever.
Yeah.
So let's just get that. There may not be anything wrong with the way you're communicating with them.
Mm.
Okay, but just that I've watched so many times. Children will go to school, behave perfectly well.
Wow. Yeah.
They're
The little
teachers,
angels
and
somewhere.
then they come home and they are, you know, for their moms. I have sat in parents, teachers meetings, and I have watched children who normally are so respectful in the classroom being so rude to their parents, you know. So yeah, I think I would say familiarity could be a problem here. Another thing that could be an issue could also be, you know, just taking that statement, I am always correcting you. You know, I don't like, for some, you know, there are people who just don't, it's not everything that somebody does wrong that you will pick up on. Sometimes it's just, it's okay to allow them to be
Humans.
To be human. Yeah, exactly, to be human, because we all make mistakes. So if for every mistake that they make, you are always correcting them, they stop taking you seriously.
Seriously, exactly.
They stop listening, because it's now not correction, but nagging. And no one likes to be nagged, you know. And then there's another thing that, you know, mothers will often do, is the mode of communicating their concerns with their children or with their partners, is this thing about yelling.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Everything, it's like, calm down. You want to live long, don't you? You want to, just chill out a bit.
Yeah.
And so you have to also, Debbie, like we said, it's not the real name, but you have to look at how you communicate, your voice, and also find how you follow through threats.
Yes.
I'm going to take your iPad from you. Make sure you do that.
Yes.
Again, our young people, they are so clever. They are so clever. They know that, oh, she doesn't mean it, because she will forget.
Yeah, she would do it.
If you have to write down what threat you have dished out, write it down so that you remember. Okay, and also be reasonable when you're making such threats. If you know it's something that you can't keep, okay, so don't go saying to them, you know, if you don't behave well, you're not going to go on holiday with us. Then who are you going to leave them with?
Exactly. Who will you leave them with?
So make sure your threats, you follow your threat, they are reasonable and you follow them through.
Exactly.
And if you're the type that would yell, some mothers are so stressed out, and we get that. So they yell a lot, you know, and you know, maybe you need to really tame that down a bit, tone it down, because we talked about communication being one of the ways that we communicate is we have to look at our tones and our voice, the volume and things like that. And, you know, some dads are very good at not really saying much, but whatever they say, they mean it, and the kids know that. You know, you like, don't mess about with him. Oh, so, but it's not like that they disrespect you in some ways, but it's just that, yeah, like you rightly said, Debbie, they really don't take you seriously.
Exactly. I think that's what's happening to the mother that we are talking about here. And so, I hope that these suggestions and advice will work for these two people that have written in to ask questions. And a final thought: be loving. Be loving to your partner, to your children, and yet beyond COVID, when we go back to work and when we are out in the community, be calm. Try and see that you could use those 4 different types of communication skills. Use them at the right time and at the at right situations. Try to be confident when you and assertive when you're trying to communicate, and be aware of diversity when you are communicating with people. And this social distancing time now, we've seen that in some cultures, proximity means different things. But we've been made aware, and COVID has taught us that we need to actually keep 2 meters or 2 meters away from the next person. So let's try to keep safe while we are practicing loving communication. So for next Friday, which is on the 8th of May, this particular topic of communication and trying to build healthy relationships will now roll in smoothly into the next topic, which is mental health. Our mental health so golden. So to keep positive and staying strong now and beyond COVID-19, we need to actually build, a very good mental health. And so that's the
Your
next thing
well-being.
we're looking at. Yes, exactly. And so I don't know, Gloria, if you've enjoyed this on your sofa discussion as much as myself, but I will really tell you, I had a very good time.
As always.
Hours.
And when we were doing the rehearsal, we thought this was going to be a 30 minutes discussion. We've actually, okay, we've had fun. It shows that we've had a good time talking through these things.
Exactly. So until Friday, my say to all our listeners and participants, you stay safe and keep practicing good and effective communication skills. Until Friday, cheerio, bye.
Bye.